Hey guys, tonight we tumble headfirst into the chaos of ancient Rome. No emperors. No chariots of fire. Just the average day of a very average person. Who just so happens to be you. The air smells like ash and olive oil. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows. Twice. You're groggy, disoriented, and the straw mattress beneath you feels like you've been sleeping on a sack of angry hedgehogs. You blink, and then the shouting starts. Loud voices. Angry voices. Voices haggling over fish, debating politics, and selling questionable street meat, all at a volume that makes you wish for earplugs. But sorry, those don't exist yet, and that's when it hits you. This isn't some romantic, marble-columned postcard of Rome. This is the real thing. Dirty. Loud. Hot. And you're in the middle of it, trying to survive with a body that hasn't adjusted to Roman time. Or Roman hygiene. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start the day because you have to. There is no such thing as sleeping in for a plebeian. The moment light peeks over the horizon, Rome gets loud. The city doesn't rise gently. It springs to life like a toddler on espresso. Your walls are paper thin. Literally. The insula building you live in is made of brick, wood, and wishful thinking. You can hear the couple next door arguing about bread. Someone upstairs is moving furniture for no good reason. A dog barks. A child screams. It's a lot. There's no electricity, no digital clock. Your internal rooster tells you it's around 4:45 a.m., the most unholy time known to man. The fire in your corner hearth has long gone out, and your room is cold. But you have chores to do, errands to run, and a full day of barely surviving in a city that thinks sanitation is a myth. You splash your face with water from a clay jug that looks like it's judging you. It's icy. It's brownish. It might not technically be safe. But at least it wakes you up. You shuffle out the door, narrowly avoiding a chamber pot someone dumped into the street. Because yes, Romans often toss their waste out of upper windows. Watch your head takes on a whole new meaning. The alley reeks. It's a heady cocktail of animal dung, stale wine, sweat, and last night's fish. Welcome to olfactory time travel. Historians still argue whether Rome's early morning chaos was a symptom of poor urban planning or just the Roman definition of a productive morning routine. Either way, you're in it now. A vendor shouts panis. And tries to sell you half-burnt bread. Another waves a dead rabbit at your face. A donkey cart nearly runs you over, and the driver yells something you're pretty sure wasn't a compliment, but here's the kicker. This is all normal. This is every day. You're just one of a million souls trying to navigate this loud, messy, ancient city without stepping in something unspeakable. You sigh. It's not even 6 a.m., you haven't eaten. You haven't sat down. You haven't even used the bathroom, but that ordeal is coming. Oh, it is coming, the city hums around you. The Forum is still asleep, but the taverns and bakeries are warming up. A slave boy jogs past with a basket of scrolls. A senator's litter glides by. For men grunting under its weight while the man inside picks his teeth and pretends to be important. You're already sweating. It's not even hot yet. But that wool tunic clings to you like regret. Your feet hurt. Your eyes burn. Your back is begging for a chiropractor who won't exist for another 1,800 years, and then you hear it. A slow, rhythmic clacking. It's the sound of iron-tipped sandals. A Roman centurion is marching by, his armor gleaming, his face stern. He doesn't look at you. You're beneath notice, which is, honestly, a bit of a relief. You do not want to get noticed by Roman law enforcement. That never ends well. You duck into a side alley to avoid a group of schoolboys reciting Virgil like they're in a rap battle. One stares at you. You nod politely. He sneezes directly into your path. Excellent. Oh, and here's a fun fringe detail. Roman schoolboys used to write on wax tablets with pointy metal styluses. Forget iPads. Imagine taking notes by gouging beeswax. And if you messed up, you scraped it smooth with the flat end and started over. You're already nostalgic for Google Docs. At this point, you're craving coffee. But sorry, coffee won't exist in this part of the world for centuries. The best you can hope for is watered-down wine, and maybe a slice of garlic rubbed on stale bread if you're lucky. You sigh again. Loudly. The day hasn't even properly begun, and you're already questioning every life choice that led to this moment. Including that time travel TikTok rabbit hole you fell into last week. You pull your tunic tight. Steel your nose against the smell of humanity. And head off toward your next destination. The communal toilet. Spoiler alert, it's not great. You follow the smell. Which is rarely a good start to any story. Rome, for all its glory, isn't big on privacy. Or plumbing. And when nature calls, it calls in Latin, loudly, and with zero patience. You navigate a side alley where the scent of fresh manure turns suspiciously sour. Chickens dart past your feet. A stray cat eyes you with the weary contempt only ancient cats possess. Somewhere, someone is playing the flute. Badly, and there it is, the public latrine. It's a long, narrow stone room with rows of holes carved into benches along the walls. No stalls. No doors. Just holes. And people. Lots of people. You hesitate, understandably. Because here's how this works, you sit next to someone else who is also sitting. And you both pretend that what's happening is normal and dignified. Even though it clearly is not, there's a water channel running beneath the seats, flushing waste away. Slowly. The sound is not soothing. It gurgles ominously, as if the Tiber itself is judging you. Now, for the piece de resistance, the sponge on a stick, yes. That is what you will use to wipe. A communal sea sponge, resting in a bucket of vinegar water, shared by everyone. Tersorium, they call it. You call it a violation of every personal boundary you didn't know you had. Historians still argue whether these sponges were shared across latrines or replaced frequently. You, however, are in no mood for academic debates. You're just trying to not make eye contact with the man to your left, who is humming while doing his business. A small child wanders in and immediately starts juggling olives. No one reacts. This is apparently normal. You sit because you have to. And the cold stone sends a lightning bolt of regret straight through your spine. Your tunic gathers uncomfortably around your knees. You try to focus on the wall in front of you. Someone has etched graffiti into the stone. It reads something like, Lucilla was here, and so was everyone else. You believe it. You realize, too late, that you forgot to bring your own oil or perfume. The stench hits in waves. It's part sewage, part sweat, part what you can only describe as defeated asparagus. You gag, just a little. The man to your right grins and says, nice weather today, eh? You do not respond. You finish, as quickly as your dignity allows, and stand. Careful not to trip over your own sandals. You wipe your hands on your tunic and immediately regret that, too. You leave the latrine feeling spiritually diminished. But hey, on the bright side, you didn't fall in. That's a real possibility, by the way. Ancient Roman sewage systems were a marvel of engineering. Yes. But also a constant hazard. One quirky historical tidbit. Roman latrines occasionally exploded. Methane gas buildup. Someone walks in with a torch. Boom. That's not the kind of relief anyone wants. Outside, you breathe deeply. Or you try. The air is only marginally better. A man walks by with a dead pig slung over his shoulder. A pair of legionaries joke loudly about last night's dice game. You try to forget what just happened. You miss toilet paper. You miss locks on doors. You miss solitude. You begin to suspect you're not cut out for this world, but the day marches on. And so must you. It's time to find breakfast. There's no fridge waiting for you at home. No toaster. No oat milk latte. Just whatever's being sold at the nearest papina. Basically a street bar that doubles as a cafe, soup stand, and place to get pickpocket while you eat. You dodge a group of boys throwing knucklebones on the curb and duck into a stall run by a woman named Flavia, who looks like she's been awake since Julius Caesar was a toddler. She hands you a hunk of coarse bread and a bowl of garlic paste. That's breakfast. That's all of breakfast. It's chewy. It's pungent. It's warm, at least. The garlic hits your tongue like a punch, and your stomach complains audibly. The wine she gives you is so watered down you can see the bottom of the cup. Still, you drink it. Historians still argue whether Romans diluted their wine because of taste, health, or class signaling. You think it's because the full-strength stuff would have made living like this unbearable. You ask Flavia if she has anything else. She shrugs. Got some olives. Leftover porridge. Yesterday's eel. You decline. Politely, as you chew, you watch the city shift into gear. Shopkeepers raise wooden shutters. Bakers fan the flames in their clay ovens. A man screams at a goat. A goat screams back. There's rhythm to it. Chaos, yes, but patterned chaos. It almost starts to feel normal if you squint. You finish the last of your bread, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and brace yourself for what's next. The streets are waking up, and so are the hazards, slippery paving stones, aggressive cart drivers, and the sheer volume of human noise. Somewhere, a crier is yelling the day's announcements. You can't hear a word. But you get the message. The city is alive. And it does not care if you're ready. You're still chewing garlic when the bread runs out. The paste lingers on your breath like it's taken up permanent residence. You try not to exhale near anyone, but that's hard to manage when you're about to enter a crowd thick enough to double as a rugby scrum. The streets have fully awakened now. What was a gentle buzz of pre-dawn clamor has become a blaring, foot-stomping, elbow-throwing concert of movement. And you're just trying to find your next step without being trampled by a runaway ox, as you weave between carts and people. And was that a monkey? Your stomach sends up a warning rumble. That garlic bread was more suggestion than sustenance. You duck into another papina, hoping for a second course. The owner, a man with a beard so thick it may contain its own microclimate, offers you something steaming in a clay bowl. It's a kind of stew. Possibly lamb. Possibly rat. Possibly both. You eat it anyway. The flavor is complicated. You detect hints of rosemary, boiled onion, and something vaguely metallic. The texture is gelatinous. The warmth helps, though, and you decide to ignore the crunchy bit. Mainstream Roman cuisine wasn't exactly made for comfort. It was practical, seasonal, and occasionally terrifying. Think of fish sauce, or garum, made from fermented fish guts aged in the sun, and used on almost everything. You haven't had it yet. But you will. Oh, you will. You take another bite and crunch down on something that may once have been a beak. Time to move on. You wipe your hands and step outside, where the sun is now at full throttle. The warmth on your tunic feels almost pleasant. Then the smell of garbage, body odor, and roasted nuts mingling in the air reminds you where you are, Rome. The eternal city. And also the eternal dumpster, depending on which street you're on, a man shouts. You jump, He's balancing a tray of sausages on his head and yelling prices that keep changing. Two boys run past you, knocking the tray over. The sausages roll. A dog appears from nowhere and grabs one. Chaos ensues, no one seems bothered, you walk on, dodging puddles you suspect are not water. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, cracked, and absolutely determined to destroy your ankles. Roman roads were engineering marvels when they were clean, maintained, and not in the middle of a residential meat market. You trip once. Catch yourself. Glance around. Nobody notices. Or cares. A blessing, really. Historians still argue whether Roman street vendors operated under any form of municipal control or if it was just glorified anarchy. Judging by what just happened with the sausage cart, you're betting on the latter. You're now approaching the Forum, one of the city's many marketplaces. It smells like ambition and spoiled cheese. There are people everywhere, shouting, trading, shoving. You quickly realize that personal space is a modern fantasy. A woman with 5 chickens strapped to her back elbows you in the ribs. An old man with no teeth tries to sell you a carved amulet blessed by Minerva herself. You politely decline. He mutters something that might be a curse. You walk faster, you're starving again. That stew didn't last long. You find a stall selling libum, a kind of Roman cheesecake made with ricotta and honey. You buy one. It's warm. Sweet. The texture is dense but comforting, and for a moment, you almost feel human, and then someone tries to steal your purse. You're not sure what happens first. The sharp tug on your tunic, the sudden lightness of your waist, or the instinctual scream that comes out of you like a war cry. You spin around. The thief is 10 years old and already gone. You sigh, check your belt, and discover he only took half a coin. Lucky you, you shuffle onward, your nerves frayed, your stomach still confused, and your shoes already starting to give you blisters. Roman footwear was made for function, not comfort. Your sandals are stiff. Your toes are exposed. The straps dig into your ankles like they've got a vendetta. You pass another food stall. They're roasting something that smells like hope, but your coin pouch is too light now. And your stomach too stubborn. You decide to push on. The city isn't going to slow down. Neither can you. As you head toward the Forum proper, you pass a line of citizens arguing over civic notices nailed to a wall. Someone tears one down. Someone else slaps him. A third person starts quoting Cicero in a falsetto, "Welcome to Rome, where the politics are public, the insults poetic, and everyone's a philosopher." Before lunch, you think about sitting. You really do. But there's nowhere to sit unless you want to pay. Even the steps are taken. Men are playing dice. Women are feeding pigeons. One guy is asleep with his feet in a bucket. You're sweating now. Not glistening. Not perspiring. Sweating. Your tunic is damp and your patience is low. Somewhere nearby, someone drops a crate of amphory. The crash is deafening. No one looks, and then you see it. A vendor stirring a massive vat of pulse, a kind of Roman porridge made from spelt grain. It looks thick and soupy. Honestly, you're desperate enough to want it. He offers a bowl. You nod, you take a bite. It's bland. But it's warm. And it doesn't crunch. You decide it's the best thing you've eaten all day. The vendor winks and says, "Extra rat-free today." You pretend he's joking. Belly half full and dignity hanging by a thread, you brace yourself for the Roman street gauntlet. Crossing a Roman road isn't like waiting for a walk signal or using a zebra crossing. It's more like trying to outmaneuver a herd of angry goats while blindfolded and holding a tray of pottery. Except the goats are ox carts, stray dogs, arrogant senators in litters, and small children with wooden swords. You step out, and immediately a man carrying a sack of something suspicious barrels past you. You spin. Regain your footing. Then almost trip over a pile of discarded fish bones. The city smells different here. More brine, more sweat, less optimism. Paving stones beneath your feet glisten with a mysterious slickness. Rome is proud of its roads, sure. They're marvels of ancient engineering. But nobody tells you they double as slippery death traps when merchants wash fish guts into the gutter. You sidestep a stream of runoff that you hope is water, only to nearly collide with a man leading a goat on a leash. You apologize. The goat doesn't. There's no sidewalk. No clear lane. Just one massive, grinding organism of movement where carts, feet, animals, and hopes all go to get crushed. The clang of metal on stone, the shout of move in Latin, and the creak of wooden wheels all blend into an aggressive rhythm. Historians still argue whether street maintenance was taken seriously by Roman authorities or just used as an excuse for more taxation. Judging by the crater you nearly fall into, you're leaning toward taxes first, repairs maybe, and then the real hazard appears. The litter squad, for burly slaves, are carrying a rich man in a silk-draped sedan chair. He's lounging like he invented reclining, flicking crumbs off his tunic. The men part the crowd by sheer brute force, and the rule is clear. Get out of the way or get stepped on. You flatten yourself against a wall as they pass. The rich man doesn't even glance your way. A small dog trots alongside them wearing a bejeweled collar that probably costs more than your rent. You shake your head and resume walking. Carefully, ahead, you see a baker delivering a tray of fresh focaccia. It smells amazing. You briefly consider stealing a piece. But then you remember what happened to that guy who tried to rob a bread stall last week. Word on the street is he's now volunteering at the arena. Permanently, you press on. A woman shouts from a second-story window. You look up just in time to dodge a falling chamber pot. Yes, again. There's a reason Roman streets have stepping stones. They elevate you above filth, but only barely. You pass a public fountain where a group of children are splashing water on each other. One of them slips and falls, knocking over a man who screams about his toga. The children scatter like birds. The man curses like a poet, and through it all, the smell. Rome has layers. Bread. Wine. Sweat. Horse. Then somewhere, in the back of your nose, always. Something rotting. You sneeze, a passing merchant mutters auspicious, which could either be good luck or a subtle hex. You don't ask. As you round a corner near the Subura, the city's notoriously wild district, the crowd shifts tone. Louder. More aggressive. Sellers shout at you. Perfumes. Roasted chestnuts. Lewd figurines. All shoved into your personal space like pop-up ads come to life. A man tries to sell you a genuine Spartan dagger. You're pretty sure it's a spoon, one fringe historical tidbit. Romans believed some streets were haunted by restless spirits, especially in the Subura. You don't see any ghosts, but you do see a man arguing with a pigeon. So. Close enough, you reach a quieter intersection where, miraculously, no carts threaten your life. You consider lingering, but someone has set up an impromptu puppet show that's now blocking the exit. The puppets are oddly violent. A child claps. You take the detour. You finally break into a stretch of road that's smoother and cleaner. A sign of money nearby. Likely the Forum or maybe one of the bathhouse districts, and then it hits. Foot fatigue, the sandals, thin leather strapped like a cage, have betrayed you. Your heels are raw. Your arches ache. Every step feels like a test of willpower. There's a reason Roman citizens often had a slave just to carry their extra sandals. Unfortunately, your team consists of just you and your half-eaten porridge memory. You lean against a wall and flex your toes. Bad idea. A passing rat decides your ankle is a good place to sniff. You jump. The rat vanishes. You cry a little inside, you start moving again. Carefully. Each step is deliberate, placed like a chess move on a board made of punishment, and then you trip, not dramatically. Just enough to stumble, catch your breath, and get a mouthful of curse words from an old man nearby who apparently thought you stepped on his cabbage. You didn't. Probably, you mutter an apology. He throws the cabbage anyway. It bounces off a wall, rolls down the street, and a goat eats it. You walk faster. Eventually, you reach a shaded arcade. A colonnaded stretch where the foot traffic eases. A relief. You finally slow down. Your breathing evens. Your stomach settles, and then a man next to you starts violently vomiting into a gutter. So that's that. Welcome to a Roman morning commute. You'd hoped for a quiet corner of the city. A moment to collect yourself. Maybe a fountain, a patch of shade, some non-vomiting companionship. Instead, you find yourself swept, quite literally, into a crowd marching toward the Forum, the buzzing civic heart of Rome. The space opens like a cracked egg, noisy and yolky and full of half-formed opinions. This is where the magic happens, supposedly. Where law is debated, deals are struck, statues are worshipped, and scandals are whispered behind togas. It's also where you are now expected to sit through a trial you didn't ask to be part of. Congratulations. You've just been summoned to what passes for jury duty in the Roman Republic, sort of. Technically, you're not a juror. You're just a body. A warm, breathing body needed to fill out the crowd and make things look legitimate. The court official grabs you by the elbow and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Stand there and nod occasionally." So now you're pressed against a column, the sun in your eyes, and the defendant is already wailing. He's accused of stealing amphorae from a wine merchant. The wine merchant is shouting. The defendant is shouting louder. Their advocates are locked in a battle of Latin so florid, you're pretty sure Cicero just rolled in his grave. The presiding magistrate lounges on a curule chair, sipping watered wine and looking like he's mentally designing a new garden. He waves his hand every few minutes, and people immediately quiet down. You try that motion later at a pigeon. It doesn't work. Historians still argue whether the average Roman truly trusted their legal system or simply used it as a social sport. Judging by the cackling audience and side bets being placed, you're leaning toward entertainment. The trial drones on. Someone brings up Saturn. You're unclear if that's relevant. There's a lot of yelling. A lot of rhetorical questions. One orator gestures so wildly, he nearly knocks over a statue of Mercury. You glance around. Other audience members are eating grapes, whispering gossip, or dozing. One man is carving a tiny horse out of wax. You consider asking for a turn. Quirky side note, Roman lawyers didn't get paid directly for court appearances. It was technically illegal. Instead, they were gifted elaborate thank yous after a case ended. A loophole so wide you could drive a chariot through it. Back in the courtroom, or plaza really, the shouting reaches a crescendo. The magistrate sighs, gives a token ruling, and the defendant is either fined or celebrated. You're not entirely sure. Everyone starts clapping. You do too. Seemed like the thing to do. You slip out before anyone can assign you another civic role. There are rumors they need volunteers to clean the vomitorium. You do not want to find out if that's a metaphor. The sun is almost directly overhead now, and the Forum has turned into a human stew. Toga fabric clings to sweaty backs. Coins change hands. Pigeons circle like feathery pickpockets. You retreat to the edge of the plaza where scribes are selling letters. Yes, letters. If you're illiterate, and odds are in this world you are, you hire someone to write for you. A woman dictates a note to her cousin in Gaul. A soldier has a scribe compose something tear-stained for his sweetheart. You consider sending a message home. Something simple. Help. But you can't afford it. Besides, there's no post office, One scribe tries to upsell you on a love poem. Guaranteed to melt hearts, he says. He looks like he's never been in love and once stabbed a scroll out of spite. You decline. You stroll deeper into the forum, where a minor temple offers a sliver of shade and the illusion of calm. You sit on the stone steps. It's warm. Not exactly comfortable, but after the verbal chaos of court, it feels like a spa. And then someone sits beside you. A priest? A philosopher? No. Just a man in a wrinkled tunic who immediately starts listing his opinions about grain prices and gladiator rankings. You nod politely. He doesn't stop. Eventually, you stand, stretch your back, and ease away before he gets into the politics of sewage. As you meander toward the edge of the forum, a troupe of street performers starts juggling flaming sticks. You pause. This, at least, is entertaining. Until one stick flies too high and lands in a produce cart. A small fire starts. Everyone cheers. Time to leave. You slip back into the streets and remember the next item on your invisible to-do list. Find a place to wash up. Because while you haven't done anything particularly dirty today, just being in Rome makes you feel like you need a deep cleanse. Besides, the Roman baths are where everyone goes. Cleanliness. Gossip. Business. Romance. Possibly foot infections. All under one hypocaust-heated roof. You're already sticky, dusty, and emotionally fried. A good scrape and a sit-down sound like heaven. Plus, there's a strong chance the bathhouse has benches. You set off with renewed purpose. Which is lucky, because your next stop involves a man with a strigil, a lot of hot steam, and the ancient Roman equivalent of a loofah made of bronze. The Roman bathhouse looms ahead like a palace built for sweating, gossip, and aggressive exfoliation. You're already leaking perspiration from every possible pore, so stepping inside feels redundant. But necessary. Because in this city, skipping the baths is like refusing to breathe. It's unthinkable, suspicious, and deeply unhygienic. You push through a heavy curtain and enter the apoditorium, the changing room. It's not private. Nothing in Rome is private. Men strip openly, chatting about politics, bread riots, and the merits of one gladiator's footwork over another's. You clutch your tunic awkwardly. There's no locker. Instead, a slave named Cato offers to watch your belongings. You give him a look that says, "Please don't steal my only sandals." He returns a look that says, "No promises." You step forward, barefoot, onto the warm stone floor. The air is thick, moist, herbal, and faintly metallic, like time and rust had a baby. Steam curls around marble columns. Echoes of laughter and splashing drift from deeper within. You're guided into the tepidarium, the warm room, where your skin begins to melt in the gentlest, slowest way imaginable. You sit on a stone bench, half naked, surrounded by strangers also half naked, and try not to look anyone directly in the eye. A man next to you scratches his back with a bronze tool. Another is loudly retelling the same joke for the third time. Everyone laughs again. Dutifully, you breathe deeply, and for a moment, it feels okay. Then you enter the caldarium, the hot room. It hits you like a slap made of soup. The air is boiling. The water is hotter still. It's not bathing. It's poaching. Your lungs scream. Your eyebrows sweat. You feel like a dumpling. You lower yourself into the pool and immediately regret it. The stone is slippery. The water smells faintly of feet and rosemary. But your muscles relax in betrayal. You close your eyes, and then you feel the strigil. A strigil is a curved bronze blade used not to cut, but to scrape. Romans didn't use soap. They used oil. You slather yourself with olive oil, then have someone scrape it off. Along with every dead skin cell you've ever owned and possibly some ancestral trauma, the man helping you does not ask permission. He smiles, says hold still, and begins scraping with the energy of someone cleaning a particularly neglected countertop. You consider screaming. You don't. You just grip the edge of the pool and pray he avoids your ribs. Historians still debate how much actual cleaning happened in the baths compared to how much was just social obligation. You're now sure it's mostly obligation. Cleanliness is a side effect. After the scraping, you're handed a towel the size of a napkin and told to enjoy the frigidarium, the cold plunge. You consider refusing. But everyone else is doing it. And peer pressure existed even in 100 CE. You step in, cold, so cold, your soul exits your body. Your lungs collapse into themselves. You come back up gasping like a surprised trout. Two older men nod approvingly. You're now one of them. Congratulations, you dry off with the tiny towel, which does nothing. Your tunic is still damp. Cato returns your sandals, probably after trying them on. You nod and exit the bathhouse, a little cleaner, a little pinker, and a lot more traumatized, but here's something odd. You feel awake. Almost refreshed. Until you see the crowd outside and realize your day is only halfway over. One quirky tidbit. Some bathhouses used heated floors with hollow bricks called tubuli to distribute hot air. It was basically ancient radiant heating. And still somehow not enough to make the floors less slippery. Outside, a group of children are arguing over a stick. A woman is yelling about figs. A man is selling fried dormice and offers you one. You decline, your skin tingles from the bath. It smells like oil and limestone and vague ambition, and now comes the hard part. Finding medicine, because your head. It's pounding, could be the sun. Could be dehydration. Could be that ancient garlic paste still fighting for dominance inside your bloodstream. You stumble through a quieter alley in search of the local apothecarius, the Roman version of a pharmacist, but with more lizards in jars. You find one. His shop is a wonderland of strange smells, dried herbs, crushed bugs, and pickled things floating in cloudy liquid. He greets you in a sing-song Latin lilt and gestures to his shelves. You point at your temple. Caput, you mumble. He grins like you've just asked for something exciting. He mixes something from a bowl of charcoal, boiled cabbage, and possibly powdered coral. You sip, it tastes like regret. He adds a salve to your temples, made from poppy, mouse brains, and burnt wool. You're not kidding. You want to be kidding. Historians still argue whether Roman medicine actually helped or if it was a placebo wrapped in superstition. You'd argue it was both. And neither. You pay the man with a small coin. He offers you a talisman shaped like a snake. You decline. Back outside, the light stabs your eyes. The headache remains. But your skin glows with the faint sheen of overexfoliation and medicinal grease. You feel half dead. But also like you could wrestle a minor deity. You need food, again. Your head still throbs. Your stomach is staging a small but vocal rebellion, and your face smells faintly of roasted rodent mixed with mint. Welcome to Roman healthcare. You stagger through a narrow street shaded by crumbling awnings and laundry lines strung like tripwires. The herbal salve on your temples has started to itch, and the garlic paste from earlier is definitely making a comeback. What you need now is real food, or, well, something edible that won't fight back. You pass a bakery. The scent of singed crust and ash pulls at you. But when you look inside, the baker's throwing a tantrum over a shipment of spoiled barley. One loaf is burnt to a crisp. The other is being nibbled by something with whiskers. You walk on. Eventually, you stumble across a street vendor hawking something in a large ceramic bowl. The sign says Icitia aumentata. It sounds fancy. It's not. It's ancient Roman hamburger, ground meat mixed with pine nuts, pepper, and fish sauce. And you know what? It's not half bad. You buy one. Maybe two. The vendor tosses them into a palm leaf wrapper and sprinkles something green and suspicious on top. You don't ask questions. You just eat. The meat is warm and spiced. The fish sauce, garum, is unmistakable. It hits your nose before your tongue and lingers like a houseguest that won't leave. Still, your stomach growls less. Progress, a quirky little fact, garum was so prized. Wealthy families had their own secret recipes passed down like heirlooms. The finest stuff could cost more than perfume. Yours, however, probably came from a barrel that moonlighted as a rat house. You sit on a stone bench that leans ever so slightly toward collapse and nibble your oily lunch while watching a group of boys reenact gladiator battles using sticks and extremely creative sound effects. One kid is clearly the star. He's got a helmet made from an upside-down basket and delivers dramatic speeches in mock Latin. A woman walks by, shakes her head, and mutters, "Actors." She might be right. As you chew, your eye catches a flyer nailed to a post. It's an invitation to tonight's games at the Coliseum. Cheap seats. Cheap thrills. You shudder. Too much sun. Too much yelling. Too many large cats, no. Today you need quiet, but Rome doesn't do quiet. Instead, a trumpet sounds from the direction of the Curia, a kind of town hall. Men in crisp white togas begin to spill out, all furrowed brows and fast feet. Senate session must have ended. You briefly consider asking what they debated. Then you remember your Latin is basic, you try to follow the gist anyway. The words grain, Egypt, and crisis float by. Someone shouts treason. In an oddly cheerful tone. You decide that's your cue to go somewhere else. Historians still argue whether the Roman Senate actually functioned as a true legislative body or just as a forum for wealthy men to yell at each other in public. From what you've seen, it's definitely the yelling. You retreat down a quieter street in search of something, anything, resembling peace. Instead, you find a cart of medicinal wine. The vendor, an elderly man with only one eyebrow and a face like a sun-dried fig, assures you it will heal the head, open the belly, and close the spirit. You try a sip. It tastes like grapes had a falling out with the barrel, but it's strong. You sit back on the bench. Close your eyes. Breathe, and then someone starts shouting. It's not at you, thankfully. It's two fishmongers arguing over stall space. Their voices rise. Then come the slaps. Then someone throws a mackerel. It lands near your foot with a wet thunk. You consider moving. Again. But your feet feel heavy. Your tunic is damp with the kind of sweat that tells you it's probably time to burn it. And your brain is slowly surrendering to the heat. You drag yourself toward a shaded alley, hoping for a quiet nap or at least a quiet street fight. Instead, you see it. The Subura, Rome's most infamous neighborhood, a tangle of winding alleys, leaning buildings, and more human activity than should be legally allowed in 1 square mile. It's where the poor live. The brothels hum, and the pickpockets thrive. The city's underbelly. Though, in your case, you're about to walk straight through its colon, but it's the only shortcut to your next stop. The census office, yes. You have to check in with the Roman bureaucracy. It's like the DMV, but with more sandals and fewer windows. You steel yourself, the meatball sits heavy in your gut, and with one last breath of not quite fresh air, you march into the maze. You've entered the Subura, and immediately, the air changes. It's thicker. Not with fog, but with life. And dust. And smoke. And probably a few particles of rat. The buildings lean over you like they're conspiring. Wooden balconies creak under the weight of laundry, chickens, and questionable decision-making. Voices echo from all sides. A woman calls to her son in one direction, while 2 men in tunics argue about who owes whom 2 denarii and a half loaf of rye. You try not to look lost. But your wide-eyed glance at a passing monkey gives you away. Someone whistles. You don't turn around. You stick to the center of the alley, one hand guarding your belt pouch, what remains of it. and the other clutching your tunic like it might offer moral support. The ground is wet, but you don't ask why. A girl skips past with a basket of figs on her head. She's followed by a man advertising his skills as a tooth puller, complete with blood-stained pliers hanging from his belt. You pick up the pace. Historians still argue whether the Subura was a slum or a bustling cultural melting pot. You decide it's both. Somewhere between a nightmare and a neighborhood Facebook group gone rogue, you dodge a donkey. It doesn't dodge you. Eventually, you emerge from the tangle of alleys onto a larger, if not exactly grander, street. There it is. Your destination, the census office. It's a stone building with cracked columns and the eternal scent of baked clay and unwashed bodies. You step inside, hoping for structure. Instead, you find chaos wrapped in bureaucracy, lines everywhere. Men and women holding clay tablets, scrolls, and what look like aggressive resumes. A bored-looking clerk waves you toward a bench, already covered in exhausted bodies and one cat. You wait, and wait, and wait. Eventually, your name, or at least something that vaguely resembles your name, is barked from behind a pillar. You stand and approach a man with ink-stained fingers and the eyes of someone who's seen too many family trees. He asks for your nomen, prenomen, and tribe. You blink. He sighs and points to a wax tablet. You stumble through your limited Latin. He jots something down and asks if you own land. You laugh. He does not. He asks how many slaves you own. You think he's joking. Again, he is not. You settle for 0. Then comes the good part. He asks for your father's name, your grandfather's, and which gens, meaning clan, you belong to. You make something up that sounds vaguely Roman. Cornelius. Pizza. Augustus. He frowns. Deeply, quirky historical note. Roman identity wasn't just a name. It was a full resume embedded into your very name structure, including family, clan, honorifics, and sometimes achievements. You're just hoping not to be fined for using bad grammar. He writes something, shrugs, and stamps your record with a little lump of wax. Congratulations. You're now officially part of the empire's most overworked spreadsheet. As you leave, you pass another desk where a man is shouting that he's only sort of married and that his mistress might be pregnant with a second citizen. The clerk barely blinks. You step back out into the sun, blinking like you've just been reborn. Rome doesn't stop. The street's rhythm pulls you along again. Traders call out prices. A child begs for crusts. A philosopher argues loudly with a chicken. The chicken seems to be winning. And beneath it all, the city breathes. Relentless, you turn a corner and find a modest thermopolium, a Roman diner, basically. The owner is grilling what looks like small birds on skewers and ladling lentil soup into ceramic bowls. You give him your last coin and receive a thin stew, 2 pieces of boiled carrot, and a tiny cup of red wine. It's simple, but it's hot. You sit on a stone step and savor every bite. A small dog stares at you mournfully. You offer it a carrot. It sniffs, looks personally offended, and walks away. You sip the wine. It's stronger than before. Maybe even pleasant. You sigh. For the first time today, something feels vaguely okay, and then a street performer appears, juggling pine cones and whistling something that sounds like the national anthem of chaos. A small crowd forms. You are now part of it, whether you want to be or not. The performer sets a pine cone on fire. People cheer. The cat from earlier returns and sits on your foot. You accept this fate. Historians still debate whether Roman daily life was mostly toil or joy. At this moment, with soup in your stomach and a flaming pine cone illuminating your face, it feels like both, but the day is far from over. There's still laundry to do. Maybe a brief confrontation with someone in the Subura who thinks you owe them money. Possibly a temple visit. Possibly another bath, and eventually, if the gods are kind, you'll sleep, but not before the city throws at least 2 more surprises your way. It always does. The sun slants low now, casting Rome in that golden hour glow that makes the crumbling facades and smoke-streaked bricks look almost poetic. Almost. Your legs are stiff. Your feet ache. You've been jostled, oiled, scraped, barked at, and documented into existence. But there's one final civic chore left for the day, and you've been avoiding it like a tax collector at dinner. It's time to trace your lineage. In other words, a census bureaucrat didn't believe your invented backstory earlier and directed you sternly to the tabularium. That's the Empire's central record hall, tucked into the Capitoline Hill like an afterthought behind some angry gods. You groan and start uphill. The street narrows and steepens. You trudge up stone steps, pausing halfway to mutter creative insults under your breath that Cicero would probably appreciate. A man passes you going down, whistling. You consider throwing a sandal at him. At the top, the view is incredible. You can see the Forum behind you, bustling like a kicked anthill. You take a breath. It tastes like dust, olives, and burnt ambition. The tabularium itself is a long stone building with high windows and an interior that smells like ink and despair. Scrolls line the walls. Wax tablets, clay seals, and scribes hunched like overworked owls fill the aisles. A clerk with a receding hairline greets you by not greeting you. He points to a bench. You wait. Again, eventually, he calls you forward and asks, "Lineage?" You hesitate. He sighs. This begins a very Roman experience. A polite interrogation backed by a threat of being declared persona non grata, a nobody. Or worse, a non-citizen. Which means you pay taxes but don't get the perks. Like protection. Or bathhouse access. Or the right not to be randomly arrested. You blurt out something about being the great-grandchild of Lucius of the Cornelian Hill. He raises an eyebrow and asks if that's the Lucius who fought at Actium. You nod enthusiastically. He looks skeptical. He writes it down anyway, quirky historical fact. Romans took ancestry very seriously. Names were everything. They revealed your family history, class, reputation, and even your politics. Lying about it was common. Proving it was not, the clerk asks where your father was born. You guess. He asks how many children you have. You laugh. He does not. Eventually, he waves you off. Whether he believed you or just didn't care anymore is unclear. You're in the system now, probably under Cornelius Pizza Augustus. Outside, the sun has dropped behind the rooftops. Rome is changing again. Daytime Rome is chaos, evening Rome is a different flavor of chaos. One steeped in cooking fires, shouting neighbors, and the distant beat of a tavern drum. You meander downhill. Your stomach reminds you it's still only 70% satisfied. You consider buying a roasted turnip. Then remember you still smell like fermented wool and garlic. You decide to go home, except home is a generous term. Your insula, a multi-story Roman apartment building, is not a villa. It's not even particularly waterproof. It's a wobbly rectangle of bricks and would cram between a sausage shop and a place that claims to sell authentic Greek sandals. You enter through a door that creaks like it's auditioning for a horror play. The stairwell is narrow, dimly lit, and smells like someone tried to cook cabbage using only curses. Your unit is on the 3rd floor. You share it with a man named Marcellus, who sleeps during the day and carves dice at night. He's not home. His dice are. You sit on the stone ledge near the window, which barely opens and looks out onto another wall. But here's the thing. It's quiet. For one blessed moment, no one is yelling. No pigs are screaming. No sandals are flapping. You lean your head against the cool brick. And breathe, until someone upstairs drops a pot, and someone downstairs starts arguing in Greek, and a baby somewhere loses its mind over a lost toy or the general futility of existence. You laugh. Not a joyful laugh. More like a "this might be madness" laugh. Historians still argue whether insulae were affordable housing or death traps. Fires were common. Collapses even more so. Privacy was non-existent. Plumbing? Only if you lived on the first floor. And even then, it was optimism more than infrastructure. You try to wipe your face with your tunic. It's still damp. You sigh and flop onto the straw mattress. It pokes you in 12 different places. You sit back up, and realize you forgot to do your laundry, tomorrow. If your tunic hasn't walked away by then, you peek into a small cracked mirror. Your face looks like it's been aged 10 years and boiled in bathwater. Your eyes are tired. Your hair. Indescribable, you whisper to no one, "What am I doing here?" And from somewhere far below, a voice yells, "Shut up." Fair enough, you light the single oil lamp in the room, and it flickers weakly, casting long shadows and faint hope. The day isn't done, but at least you're home, and unless the building collapses or someone sets fire to the neighbor's cheese cart again, you might, just might, survive until morning. Evening has settled over Rome like a well-worn toga. It's creased, smoky, and a little damp around the edges. From your cracked window, you hear the city exhale. The clink of wine cups, the low hum of conversation, and that one guy down the block who sings dramatic ballads to his goat. It's weirdly peaceful. Until your stomach grumbles. Loudly, you've entered the Roman twilight zone. Too late for the big public meals. Too early to go to bed without feeling like you've missed something. So, you pull yourself upright, splash your face with the least offensive water you can find in your clay jug, and brave the world one more time. You descend the stairs again, careful to avoid the sixth step. It wobbles like a senatorial promise. Outside, Rome has changed hues. Firelight flickers behind lattice windows. Shadows stretch long across the cobbles. The air smells of charred meat and slightly overcooked hope. You wander down a narrow street and spot a papina. A Roman tavern, snack bar, and hazardous decision hub all rolled into one. It's mostly open air, with clay oil lamps and a wooden counter that's seen better centuries. Men in tunics crowd around it, drinking from squat mugs and shouting over each other with the energy of people who have no tomorrow. Or at least no dental care. You squeeze in. The owner, a large woman named Unia who could likely wrestle a boar and win, slaps a bowl in front of you. It's stew. Again. Possibly lentils. Maybe chickpeas. Definitely something floating that was never invited. She slaps a crust of bread beside it. No smile. Just efficiency. You eat, and honestly, it's not bad. The bread is hard enough to file a papyrus scroll, but it has flavor. The stew is salty, smoky, and even kind of comforting. You take another bite, then the man next to you leans in. "You're not from here," he says. Your spoon pauses mid-air. "You walk like a Greek," he adds. All soft ankles and straight posture. You're unsure whether to be offended or flattered. He asks your name. You say something vague and Roman sounding. He nods, takes a long sip of wine, and starts talking about the races at the Circus Maximus. Which chariot team is winning? Which is cursed? Which horse has a demon in its eyes? You nod along. He eventually tells you he once bet his house on a green team victory and now lives above a fishmonger. Smells terrible, he says. But the gossip's fresh. A quirky historical tidbit. Papini were the lifeblood of working-class Rome. Cheap food. Cheaper wine. A social network built on fermented beans and shouted lies. The elite called them dens of moral decay. Everyone else called them dinner. You're halfway through your bowl when a commotion begins outside, voices rise. A clatter. A crash. Someone yells, "He cheated." You freeze. Unia calmly reaches under the counter and pulls out a ladle the size of a small paddle. "Stay or go," she says. "But don't spill your bowl." You grab your food and scoot to the back corner. Outside, two men brawl. Tunic hems fly. Insults are hurled like overripe fruit. A small crowd gathers, cheering, laughing, betting. No one tries to stop it. In Rome, this is just Thursday, eventually. Someone throws a bucket of water. Everyone boos. The fight fizzles. The crowd disperses like soap bubbles. Back inside, Unia shrugs. Weak punches, she mutters. You finish your stew and ask for more bread. She hands you a chunk with a nod of approval. Progress. You sit for a while, letting the wine warm your chest and a low tavern hum settle your nerves. The man next to you has passed out. Another is singing. Uni is sharpening her ladle. A cat prowls between feet, tail high, confident it owns the place. And you're oddly content. Full belly. Half-clean skin. No immediate fires. The bar hasn't collapsed, yet. You step outside and inhale deeply. Mistake, the alley now reeks of spilled wine, wet limestone, and that eternal Roman essence. What died here and why hasn't anyone moved it? Still, it's familiar. You stroll slowly, back toward your insula, letting the night wrap around you like a scratchy but welcome blanket. Crickets chirp. Somewhere a flute plays. A couple argues in poetic verse about anchovies. Historians still argue whether the Roman working class truly found moments of peace, or if every evening was just a lull between calamities. Tonight, at least, you've carved out a quiet slice of not quite misery. Your building looms ahead, crooked and tired looking. Just like you climb the stairs again. Sixth one still wobbles. You reach your door, push it open, and there it is. Home. Marcellus has returned and is snoring like a man wrestling invisible pigs. You tiptoe past, collapse on your mattress, and stare at the ceiling. Tomorrow is another day, another stew, another bath, another chance to be crushed by a goat cart, but for now, you made it, and with any luck, you'll do it all again. The mattress still feels like a sack of gravel with commitment issues. You shift. You sigh. You stare at the ceiling, counting cobwebs. Marcellus snores on, blissfully unaware, one leg kicked over the edge of his straw mat like he's lounging in a senator's villa. Sleep doesn't come easily in a Roman insula. The walls are too thin. The noise is too persistent. The smells. Variable, so you rise. Again, because the gods, or maybe just your bladder, demand it, out into the stairwell, down past the floor that always smells like boiling cabbage and unresolved family drama. You step outside into Rome's midnight skin. It's not quiet. Rome never truly sleeps. It just shifts tone. The day's blaring energy has morphed into something darker and more slurred. You hear laughter, drunken and echoing. A group of men stumble past, arms around each other, reciting terrible poetry. One of them holds a fish like it's a trophy. You choose not to ask. In the distance, a dog howls. Another answers. Somewhere, a baby wails and is answered by an equally tired parent. You relieve yourself in the public latrine, this time with significantly less dignity. There's no crowd now, just one old man mumbling to a sponge. You don't make eye contact. On the way back, you pass a street sweeper dragging a bundle of twigs across the stones. He hums softly. A calming rhythm in a city that rarely offers such things. You nod at him. He nods back. Nothing more needs to be said. Back in the insula, Marcellus has shifted. His snoring now sounds like boiling stew. You lie back down. Close your eyes, and then it happens. A sharp crack. You sit bolt upright, not thunder. Not a pot, that was the building. A beam creaks. Somewhere above, footsteps scatter. Then silence. You lie still, listening. Rome's apartment blocks are notorious. Many built cheaply, stacked high, packed tight. Fires spread fast. Collapses happen. People disappear into rubble, and life carries on. Historians still argue whether these collapses were due more to poor construction or the weight of too many people dreaming in one place. You, right now, are leaning toward both. You lie there, perfectly still, for 5 more minutes, nothing else breaks. No crashing. No screaming, you let your breath slow again, until Marcellus rolls over and kicks the wall. You flinch anyway, eventually, sleep finds you. Not gentle. Not kind. But there, you wake sometime later to the sound of clanging pots. Marcellus is up. Mumbling about bad dreams and breakfast. He offers you a crust of bread. You accept it wordlessly. It's stale, you chew anyway. The sun hasn't quite risen, but Rome has. You hear it in the distance. Carts rolling. Voices rising. The first trader yelling about grapes that taste like the gods' tears. You suspect they do not, you throw on your tunic. It smells marginally less terrible than yesterday. Victory, outside, the air is cooler. That early morning freshness that lasts exactly 12 minutes before the city begins to cook again. You head toward the aqueduct-fed fountain on the next street, hoping to splash your face before the line forms. A woman's already there, scrubbing vegetables and humming a lullaby with an oddly violent tempo. You wash up. Briefly. The water is shockingly cold and smells faintly of limestone and optimism. You drink a little, just enough to wake something inside your chest. Today's goals. Avoid injury. Possibly learn some Latin. Maybe not get arrested. You pass by a man selling scrolls. Cheap knockoffs of Virgil and Ovid. You consider buying one, but remember you can't read beyond your fake name. He offers you a haiku. You don't ask where he learned it. A child bumps into you. You check your pouch, still there, small blessings. As the sun edges over the rooftops, you remember you're supposed to meet someone today. Someone who promised to introduce you to a friend who might have work. You're not sure what kind. You're not sure you want to know, but coin is coin. You make your way back through the market. The same fish. The same yelling. The same goat, except now, the goat looks at you like it remembers something. You decide not to think about it. You're alive. You're technically employed. You're sort of clean, and, miraculously, you still have both sandals. For a day in Rome, that's a win. The market's already humming when you arrive. It never really stopped. It just took a short, dramatic nap and woke up louder. You shoulder your way past a man selling figs so overripe they practically slap you with fragrance. Someone else is shouting about copper pots, and there's a heavily tattooed woman balancing a chicken under one arm and a ceramic jug on her head like that's just a normal Tuesday. You're here for a meeting. Allegedly, a man named Sextus told you yesterday, between bites of eel and wildly gesturing with a toothpick, that if you met him by the statue of Minerva in the Macellum, Rome's central market, he could get you in with someone who needs help. Help doing what? He didn't say. You spot the statue. Minerva looks disappointed, as usual. A pigeon sits squarely on her helmet. No Sextus. You wait. 15 minutes go by. A merchant tries to sell you fermented goat's milk. A child tries to sell you a rock. A one-eyed man tries to sell you his philosophy. You politely decline all three. Then Sextus appears. He's sweating, out of breath, and grinning like a man who just outran something he probably stole. You came. He says, as if surprised. You resist the urge to say, barely. He launches into a fast-talking pitch about a local lanista, a trainer of gladiators, who needs someone to carry water, clean armor, and look intimidating in the background. You're not thrilled about any of those things. But coin is coin. He drags you toward the Ludus, a training school for gladiators, on the outskirts of the city. Along the way, you pass temples, bathhouses, and a public speaker shouting about turnip taxes. You nod sympathetically. You have no idea what he's saying. When you arrive, the air is thick with sweat, dust, and testosterone. Men with muscles like carved marble are swinging wooden swords and yelling with theatrical fury. Someone's bleeding. No one seems concerned. The lanista is a short man with a voice like gravel and arms like rope. He looks you up and down. Grunts, "You clean?" He asks, mostly, you say, he shrugs. Close enough. You're handed a rag, a bucket, and a tunic that smells like it lost a fight with a lion. You spend the next hour wiping blood off shields and trying not to stare at the guy juggling daggers for warm-up. One quirky historical tidbit. Not all gladiators were slaves. Some were volunteers, even nobles. Seeking fame, or redemption. Or maybe they just liked pointy things. You quickly learn to stay out of the way. Especially when someone yells incoming. That could mean a ball, a practice spear, or a very angry man named Rufus. You take a break on a bench outside the training yard. Sextus has disappeared. Typical, as you sip tepid water from a ladle that tastes vaguely of iron and regret, you hear a conversation nearby. Two gladiators are arguing about whether Mars or Fortuna decides who lives. Their debate includes vigorous arm gestures, 3 references to dreams, and a surprisingly poetic bit about chickens. Historians still argue whether gladiator culture was truly honorable or just blood-soaked theater. Sitting here, listening to grown men discuss fate while covered in bruises, you're starting to think it might be both. Eventually, the lanista tosses you a bronze coin. Payment for the day. Barely enough to buy an olive. But it's something. You wander back toward the city center, your clothes dusted with arena grit and your hands smelling like rust. You pass a shrine and toss in your coin. Not out of piety. Out of superstition. And maybe because Fortuna's been iffy lately, the sun hangs low again. Rome is tilting toward dinner. You head home, your feet are tired. Your shoulders ache. But your pouch jingles, faintly. A sound that says you earned something today, even if it wasn't dignity. Back in your neighborhood, children chase each other through the street with sticks and howls. Someone's burning incense. Someone else is definitely burning fish. Your insula greets you like an old enemy. It's crooked, creaky, and somehow still standing. Marcellus is carving a new die with the intensity of a man crafting a destiny. He nods at you. Says nothing. You sit. Rest. Breathe. The city quiets. Slightly, and you realize you're still here, still standing, still Roman, sort of. At some point, nature calls. Loudly. Rudely. Without apology, you've done your best to ignore it. Shifted positions on the bench, crossed and uncrossed your legs, sipped watered wine like that would help. But now it's undeniable. The stew, the bread, the garum, and the emotional damage, it all wants out, so you face the truth. You need to find the bathroom, except. It's not called that, and it isn't one. You glance around your insular room. No chamber pot. Marcellus apparently believes in living dangerously. That means one thing. Back to the public latrines. You brace yourself and head into the street. It's late now. Rome has grown darker, rowdier, and significantly less apologetic. A man sleeps in the doorway of a temple. A group of women giggles by torchlight, passing a clay flask that smells like expired vinegar. You keep walking, avoiding puddles that squish a little too enthusiastically underfoot. Eventually, you reach the familiar row of arches and the telltale scent of too many decisions made by other people. Inside the latrine, things are quiet. Which is somehow worse. One other person sits on the far end, humming tunelessly and dabbing his temples with a wet sponge. You give him a respectful nod. He does not return it. You sit. The stone is, as always, cold. The sponge bucket is nearby, sloshing ominously. You try to make this quick, but the echoes. Oh, the echoes. Every small noise bounces around like it's auditioning for a theater festival. Your self-esteem plummets. One quirky historical tidbit. Some Roman latrines had running water beneath them, but not always. And definitely not filtered. Just enough to give everyone the illusion of sanitation while keeping expectations low. You do what needs doing, you do not feel proud. You stand, adjust your tunic, and use the communal sponge with the hesitation of a man shaking hands with a ghost. You exit the latrine slightly more hollow and definitely more humbled. Outside, a group of teenagers is throwing olives at a statue. You duck one midair, and it smacks a sleeping dog instead. The dog doesn't move. Rome has trained it well, you consider going straight home. But then again, you feel oddly awake, so you wander, not far. Just down the quieter back alleys of the Subura, where lantern light flickers against plaster walls and shadows stretch like cats, you pass a fortune-teller's stall. It's closed now. The sign boasts readings by moonlight and features a faded painting of a very smug goat. You briefly consider returning tomorrow. Farther down, you hear music, not the usual clanging pots or drunken flute solos. Real music. A lyre, soft and slow, played by someone who knows they're not being paid but still wants to make the night gentler. You follow it until you see him. An old man perched on a stool outside a shuttered bakery, eyes closed, fingers moving like he's trying to remember someone's name. You sit on a step across from him. Say nothing, he nods. Just barely, and keeps playing. Historians still argue whether music held a central place in Roman lower-class life or whether it was a luxury for the elite. Sitting here, bathed in soft light, bellies of both kinds a little quieter, it feels essential. Eventually, he stops. Doesn't speak. Just stands, bows slightly, and disappears into the alley like mist. You stay a little longer. Listening to the silence that follows, and then, like a gentle nudge from Fortuna herself, your eyelids grow heavy. You make your way back to the insula, climbing the stairs that creak and mutter beneath your weight. Marcellus is asleep again. Mouth open, clutching one of his dice like it might turn into gold overnight, you lie down. This time without expectation, just hope, and a very quiet stomach. Tomorrow promises more noise, more errands, and probably more stew, but for now, Rome has exhaled. And you, against all odds, are exhaling with it. You wake to shouting, again, this time it's coming from the stairwell. Two neighbors, possibly brothers or sworn enemies, are arguing about grain prices, missing laundry, and something to do with a chicken that may or may not have been sacred. The details are fuzzy. The volume is not. You sit up slowly, every muscle filing a formal complaint. Your back is stiff. Your legs ache. And your pillow, if we're being generous with that term, has migrated halfway across the room. Marcellus is gone. His absence is marked by the lingering smell of stale wine and half a tunic dangling from a hook. You suspect he's off gambling or impersonating a minor official again. You splash your face. Tie your sandals, and step out into a morning that smells like equal parts bread, sweat, and ambition. Your first errand is to try to get hired. Again, you heard, via a boy shouting on a corner yesterday, that the local magistrate's aide is looking for someone competent to help copy scrolls. You're not sure you qualify, but you do know how to hold a pen. Kind of. The magistrate's office is near the forum, so you trudge back toward the chaos, dodging a suspicious puddle, 3 chickens, and a man selling Carthaginian amulets that look suspiciously like painted rocks. You arrive. The aide, a thin man with ink-stained fingers and the attitude of a wet scroll, eyes you skeptically. Can you write? He asks. You nod confidently, even though your script looks like a startled spider ran through it. He hands you a tablet and a stylus. Write, by decree of the Senate and the people of Rome. You begin. Slowly. Painfully, halfway through, he sighs, snatches the stylus, and mutters, we'll try something simpler. You are given the job of ink mixer, which is exactly as glamorous as it sounds. Your task is to keep the ink bowl full, stir it gently, don't let it dry, don't spill, and absolutely don't sneeze into it again. You manage 2 full hours before your hand cramps and someone knocks over your elbow, sending a splash of black doom across a tax register. The aide glares at you. You apologize profusely. He waves you off. Come back tomorrow. Or don't. You take your leave. Quirky historical tidbit: Roman scribes used a mixture of soot, water, and gum to make ink. It smelled vaguely like burnt almonds and frustration. You walk the long way home, embarrassed, sore, and hungry. Again, at a corner stall, a vendor is selling pulse, that bland, porridge-like staple of the Roman diet. You pay 2 bronze coins and receive a bowl that tastes like sadness and warm clay. Still, it's filling. As you eat, a man with a scroll under one arm sits beside you. He's dressed better than you, clean tunic, polished sandals, even a brooch. He glances at your bowl, first time with pulse. He asks, you nod. He smirks. Add honey. Always honey. He pulls out a small vial, sprinkles a few drops into your bowl, and gestures. Try. You do. It helps. Slightly. He introduces himself as Cassius, a tutor of Latin grammar. You look like someone who could use a few verbs. He jokes. You laugh. He wasn't wrong. Cassius offers to give you a free lesson. First one's always free. Like bad decisions, he says. You follow him to a shaded courtyard where he teaches street kids and reluctant shop apprentices. He pulls out a wax tablet and begins a lesson. Nominative case, he says, is for when you want to blame someone. You like this already. He teaches you basic greetings, some numbers, and the extremely important phrase, non intellego sed essentia. It means I don't understand, but I agree. Useful in almost every Roman conversation. Historians still argue whether Latin was widely spoken or if most Romans relied on regional dialects and pantomime. Judging by the nodding going on around you, pantomime is winning. After the lesson, Cassius claps you on the back. Come again, he says. You have the look of someone who might eventually conjugate something correctly. High praise. You wander again, this time past temples and shrines. Each with its own offering bowl and faded fresco. You toss a pebble into one. Why not? Eventually, you reach a shaded bench and sit. Your legs thank you. Your brain buzzes with fragments of Latin and the sweetness of stolen honey. The city continues around you. Unapologetic. Unstoppable, and you. You're surviving, bad writing, bland porridge, and all. The afternoon sun lays itself flat across the streets of Rome, turning the city into one giant slow-cooked stew. Every wall radiates heat. Every breeze, if you're lucky enough to catch one, smells faintly of ash, olives, and someone else's sandals, which makes this the perfect time to visit the public baths again. You know this not because you want to be scrubbed within an inch of your dignity, but because Unia, your favorite tavern keeper with the lethal ladle, warned you earlier. You stink. And not in the poetic way. So, off you go. The thermi is buzzing. Rome may not provide healthcare or reliable fireproof housing, but by Jupiter, it will give you a communal scrub-down with minimal questions asked. You pay your entry fee, a single bronze coin, and step through the archway. Instantly, you're enveloped in steam, noise, and the distinct scent of eucalyptus attempting to wrestle body odor into submission. The apoditerium is just as chaotic as before. Half-naked men are shouting. Kids are running with towels. Slaves are collecting sandals and valuables in baskets that you will absolutely not see again if you're not careful. You find a niche in the wall and stash your things, placing your pouch in the very back like it might grow legs and defend itself. Then it's time to disrobe. Again, this time, you're less shy, because frankly, you've seen and been seen enough in Rome to lose any remaining illusions of privacy. You step into the tepidarium, where the warm air is almost kind. The floor is still slippery, though, and the man next to you has a laugh that could shatter pottery. Still, it's calmer here. You let the heat do its work, soaking into your bones, easing the ache that's nested between your shoulders since about 5 catastrophes ago. A man beside you is singing. Softly. Off-key. But not badly. He introduces himself as Lucan, a sculptor's assistant with opinions about everything. From marble import taxes to why Mercury is clearly the superior god for foot-related miracles. You nod. He talks. It's like an audiobook you didn't ask for but don't mind. You move to the caldarium, the hot room. This time, you're ready, almost. The steam hits you like a curtain of boiling soup. Your pores scream. But you soldier on, finding a spot near the edge of the pool where a group of older men are arguing about politics. Loudly. Passionately. And shirtlessly, you try not to listen. But it's hard to ignore phrases like the empire is falling apart and that fish sauce tax is tyranny. One man slaps the water every time he makes a point. You shift slightly to avoid his splash radius, then comes the oil. You slather it on like a pro this time. Olive oil, slightly warmed, with the consistency of regret. It smells nice, though, earthy and clean. A bathhouse attendant offers to scrape it off. You agree. Cautiously, the strigil comes out, and the scraping begins, less aggressive this time. More exfoliation than assault. One quirky historical fact. Some Romans collected the scraped-off oil and sweat mixture and sold it as a cosmetic for the wealthy. You gag a little thinking about that. Scraped, steamed, and slightly smaller from water loss, you move to the frigidarium. Cold pool, still not fun, but you dunk yourself like a champion, emerging with a gasp that startles a nearby pigeon perched on a windowsill. Your skin tingles. Your brain clears, you might be clean. For at least an hour. You dry off with a thin sheet that doesn't so much absorb water as politely shift it around. Then it's back to the changing room, where, miracle of miracles, your pouch is still there. You dress. Lucan claps you on the back. Come by my shop tomorrow, he says. We need someone to help polish toes. You blink, he grins. Statue toes. Ah. You make a mental note. Outside, the air feels sharp and crisp. You walk lighter. The world smells better. Or maybe you do. Hard to say. You wander past the bakery. The bread's just come out, golden, blistered, tempting. You don't have enough coins for a full loaf, but the baker nods at you. For the clean ones, he says, tearing off a hunk and tossing it your way. You catch it. Laugh. Historians still debate whether bathhouses were Rome's true centers of daily life, equal parts hygiene, politics, matchmaking, and business. But today, it felt like something simpler, a reset. You sit on a shaded step with your warm bread. Watch the crowds pass. Listen to the sounds of Rome at half speed. There's peace in your limbs. Bread in your hand. And, for once, nothing urgent. That might be the closest thing to luxury you'll ever know. Rome is glowing now. Firelight flickers in windows, and torches line the streets like golden punctuation marks. The clatter of the day has softened into the hush of anticipation. Because tonight, you've been invited to a dinner, not just any dinner. A cena, at a patrician's home. You don't know how this happened. Maybe it was Lucan's recommendation. Maybe Unia pulled a string. Maybe Fortuna is just toying with you for her own amusement, but here you are, walking nervously toward a domus with a marble threshold, carrying nothing but a clean tunic and the hope that you won't be mistaken for a servant. The door opens before you can knock. A slave nods without smiling and ushers you into the atrium. The entry hall. It's quiet, echoing, and smells like incense and ambition. You're not alone. Other guests mill about, men in tunics made of fabric so fine it practically glows, women with braided hair coiled like architecture, and one man whose rings look like they could fund a minor province. You feel out of place, immediately, but then someone hands you a cup of spiced wine, and the awkwardness softens. Slightly, the host appears. His name is Gaius something something, with a voice like honey and eyes like a tax audit. He welcomes everyone with a practiced warmth and gestures toward the triclinium, the dining room. It's set up in typical Roman style, 3 couches in a U-shape. Low table in the center. Your motion toward the lowest seat, of course. The lowest guest always reclines on the left. You do your best impression of reclining gracefully. It feels more like falling sideways with intention. Then the food begins. First course, eggs, olives, mushrooms soaked in wine, and something that might be dormouse. You try not to ask. The conversation starts light. Gladiator rumors, local politics, and the latest theater scandal. Everyone laughs at the right places. You sip your wine, nod occasionally, and try not to spill anything on your tunic. Second course, fish. Multiple kinds. All with sauces. There's garum again, fish sauce so pungent it could wake the dead, and a mysterious green paste no one identifies. It tastes aggressive. You try to pace yourself. But your stomach isn't used to food that's both hot and spicy and confusing. You nibble. You smile. You survive. Third course, roasted meats. Goose, duck, maybe boar. There's a debate over whether one of the cuts is actually pheasant. One guest swears it's peacock. You pretend to agree, and then your name comes up. The host turns to you with a smile sharp enough to slice an apple. And what do you do, friend? You hesitate. You cannot say you clean blood off gladiator armor and write the letter A very slowly, so you say, I work with scribes and stone. It's vague. It's mysterious. It works, he nods approvingly. Respectable. Rome needs thinkers and builders. You almost choke on your wine in relief. Then comes entertainment. A poet recites something about lost love and moldy grapes. A lyre player performs a melody that sounds suspiciously like the one you heard last night outside the bakery. You begin to wonder if it's just the same 3 musicians rotating around Rome. One fringe detail, Romans love to be entertained at dinner. Musicians, dancers, acrobats, even philosophical debates. It was part spectacle and part social chess game. You catch bits of whispered gossip between courses. Someone owes someone else a goat, someone's son has joined a mystery cult, someone else might be sleeping with a senator's scribe, which apparently is both scandalous and strategic. You nod politely. Finally, dessert arrives. It's honey cakes, dates stuffed with nuts, and fruit soaked in wine. You've long passed the point of hunger, but social survival requires participation. So you eat a cake. It tastes like sweet nap time. As the evening winds down, the host toasts to the gods, the republic, and, oddly, his neighbor's new mosaic floor. You echo the cheers. You even raise your cup with something resembling confidence. Then you're politely nudged toward the door. Not just you, everyone. Roman dinners are not sleepovers. There is a rhythm. In, feast, gossip, out, you thank the host. He barely hears you. Outside, the night is cooler. A few stars flicker. Rome feels quieter, softer. Almost dreamlike. You walk home through streets littered with rose petals, wine puddles, and one man sleeping face down in a vegetable cart. The wind carries the faint scent of mint and charcoal. Back at the insula, Marcellus is snoring again. You ignore him. You lie on your mattress, belly full, head buzzing, and hands still sticky from date syrup. Historians still argue whether Roman feasts were signs of decadence or cultural sophistication. You're pretty sure the answer is yes. You smile in the dark, because tonight, you were fed, tolerated, maybe even accepted, and that, in Rome, is no small thing. You dream of lions, not metaphorical ones. Actual, roaring, oversized cats wearing bronze collars and chasing you through the forum while a crowd chants your poorly pronounced name. You wake with a start, sweaty and tangled in a blanket that smells faintly of bathhouse steam and roasted goose. Marcellus is already gone. He left a note scratched onto a broken pottery shard, betting on Reds today. Pray to Fortuna. You're not sure whether he means a chariot team or a dice game. Could be either. Could be both. You stretch, wince, and realize your stomach is still full of last night's peacock or possibly duck dinner. It groans in protest. You make a vague promise to eat fruit and bread today. Just fruit and bread. Spoiler, you will break that promise, because today, you're going to the games, the Ludi, bread and circuses. Spectacle. Roaring crowds. A casual disregard for human survival disguised as entertainment. You heard about it at the feast. Everyone's going. Even people who claim to hate violence suddenly become experts in swordplay once the blood hits the sand. You arrive early, as advised. The Colosseum, or Flavian Amphitheater if you're trying to impress, is already swarming. Citizens crowd the steps. Vendors shout about wine, honeyed nuts, fried cheese, and cushions for rent. One man is selling fake tickets. Another is selling real mice on sticks. You look away. The entrance is divided by class. Senators to the front. Nobles next. Then the ordinary folks. Then, somewhere at the top near the pigeons and loose masonry, the rest. That's you. You climb the stone stairs, up and farther up, until you can see the whole city stretching beyond the curve of the arena. It's breathtaking. And loud. You find a seat between a fishmonger and a boy eating something aggressively crunchy. The smell is equal parts excitement, sweat, and oversalted cheese. A horn sounds, the games begin. First, the parade. Gladiators in armor gleaming, marching behind musicians and slaves carrying banners. The crowd roars. The boy next to you throws his hands up and spills crumbs on your tunic. Then the fights, animal hunts. First, trainers release wild beasts into the arena, lions, leopards, a very confused ostrich. Armed men chase them with spears and nets, trying to look heroic while avoiding a sudden and messy death. The ostrich wins its round simply by refusing to participate and pecking a trainer in the knee. Next, mock battles. These are naval reenactments if the arena has been flooded, but not today, thank the gods. Instead, teams stage a dramatic siege involving ladders, shields, and a lot of screaming. The crowd eats it up, and then, gladiators, real ones. Some are volunteers. Some are slaves. Some are criminals hoping for freedom. Each one steps into the arena with a prayer on their lips and a sword in their hand. You can't help but tense as the first clang of metal echoes through the stadium. One fighter is clearly favored. A tall Thracian named Diodorus, who salutes the emperor's seat and spins his blade like he's dancing. His opponent is smaller but faster, ducking under each strike and nearly turning the fight around. It's dramatic. It's brutal. It's mesmerizing. You don't know how to feel. The crowd cheers. Some shout for mercy. Others demand death. You remember the phrase, pollice verso. Thumbs up or down. A signal that could spare a life or end it. Quirky detail. Historians still argue which thumb gesture meant what. Hollywood got it wrong. It's possible that thumbs up meant kill, and thumbs hidden meant mercy. Either way, someone always left horizontal. Diodorus wins. Barely. He stands bloodied, panting, waiting for the verdict. The emperor's stand is empty today, so a magistrate makes the call. The crowd gives a mixed signal. Some want blood. Others want mercy. The magistrate waves his hand, and Diodorus bows. The loser is dragged away. Breathing? Hard to tell. You sit back, exhausted by proxy. Vendors move through the aisles selling more snacks. You buy a figure. It is, somehow, the best thing you've eaten all day. The boy next to you tells you his favorite fighter is undefeated and once wrestled a bear. You nod. He tells you he wants to be a retiarius, a net antrident gladiator. You tell him maybe try bakery school first. The sun begins to dip. Shadows stretch across the arena. More fights continue. Some are staged, some not. The crowd never tires. They chant. They bet. They cheer. You feel your senses dull under the weight of so much spectacle. Historians still debate whether the Roman games were political distraction or genuine cultural bonding. Sitting here, covered in dust and fig juice, it's probably both. Eventually, the final bout ends. A champion is crowned. Coins are tossed. People begin to file out, arguing over winners and odds, planning their next visit. You walk home slowly, stomach twisted. Was it thrilling? Yes. Terrifying? Absolutely, but more than anything, it reminded you how fragile life can be here. Tomorrow, any one of those men in the arena could be sweeping a street. Or being swept off it. Back at your insula, the quiet feels strange. Marcellus isn't home. The room feels cooler. You lie down and close your eyes, but you still hear the crowd, and somewhere, deep inside, you wonder which part of you liked it. The scream wakes you, not a dream. Not Marcellus talking in his sleep. A real scream, raw, high-pitched, and very close. You sit up, heart thudding, just as a second noise hits. The unmistakable crackle of fire. You scramble to your feet. The room is already warm, too warm. The light flickering through the cracks in the wooden shutters isn't moonlight. It's orange. Alive, you shove the door open, smoke rushes in like a punch, someone's yelling Ignis. Fire. You can't see them through the haze, but their footsteps thunder past like a warning shot. You grab your belt, your sandals, your pouch. Everything else can burn. You don't think. You move, down the stairs, 3 at a time. The 6th one collapses under your foot and you fall, scraping your elbow hard against the wall. You keep moving, out into the street. Coughing, eyes watering, limbs buzzing with panic, you turn back. The building is on fire, not the whole thing yet, but the top floor is alight. Flames lick at the wooden beams like they've been waiting. Neighbors are shouting. A woman throws a bucket of water that evaporates midair. A man drags a goat out by its horns. The goat, for once, offers no resistance. Rome burns often. The city is built too close, too high, and too dry. One ember, one overturned oil lamp, and that's it. You join the human chain passing buckets from a nearby fountain. It's not working. Everyone knows it's not working. But doing something is better than watching. Historians still argue whether Rome's infamous fires were accidents or political ploys. All you know is that your home is melting and your mattress is probably now a smoldering pile of straw and regret. Then something close to a miracle happens. A group of vigiles arrives. Rome's version of firefighters combined with night watchmen. They've got hooks, water pumps, and an attitude. They bark orders. You listen. One climbs the roof to hack away burning timber. Another douses the lower floors. A third grabs you and shouts, "You! Carry buckets!" Before you can answer, you do. The water is warm and smells of ash. Your arms ache. You spill half of it with every step. But slowly, bit by bit, the flames retreat. You collapse on a stoop, shirt drenched, lungs scorched. People murmur. Someone cries. A child sleeps through the whole thing in a laundry basket. The fire is out. Your room gone. Charred. Probably unsafe to return to. You sit there, stunned, watching smoke curl upward like a lazy ghost. Eventually, Marcellus appears. Barefoot. Holding a chicken. You do not ask, he sits beside you. Breathing hard, that's the 3rd this month, he mutters. You nod. Say nothing. He offers you a bit of burnt bread. You take it, and that's dinner. As the crowd disperses, some people head back inside. Others make camps on the street. Curled against walls or huddled near shuttered shops, you and Marcellus find space behind a market stall, under an awning that smells like olives and damp rope. You lie down. The ground is hard, but dry. Above, the stars peek through smoke trails, and despite the noise, the ache, the faint scent of your own singed hair, you're alive. Quirky tidbit. After one particularly devastating fire in 64 CE, Emperor Nero blamed the Christians. Others blamed Nero. Some say he sang. Some say he wept. Everyone agrees the city changed. You close your eyes, Rome changes you, too, not all at once, but slowly, like water eroding stone, or smoke curling into your memory. You wake up stiff, sore, and sprinkled with straw. Your back has aligned itself into the shape of a market stall leg. The ground, you now realize, is not forgiving. Especially when you've spent the previous day carrying water, inhaling smoke, and possibly sleeping on a figure. Marcellus is still asleep, cradling the chicken like it's a long-lost heir. You leave him there. If anyone's earned the right to nap wrapped around poultry, it's him. The street is quieter than usual. Fire changes the tone of a place. Even Rome, loud and brash and relentless, seems to whisper the morning after. Vendors set up slowly, with less shouting. Neighbors nod at each other with a softness that wasn't there yesterday. Even the pigeons are respectful. You stretch. Your arms complain. Your stomach mutters, breakfast is essential. Your first attempt is a stall selling vinegared beans and lukewarm porridge. You eat both, quickly and without joy, like someone fulfilling a social contract with their own digestive system. Then you wander, nowhere in particular, partly because your home is ash. Partly because walking feels like the only thing left that belongs entirely to you. You drift toward the Janiculum Hill. It's a climb, but you're not in a rush. The higher you go, the more the city reveals itself. Terracotta roofs, curling smoke from the bakeries, the endless sprawl of stone and ambition. From up here, Rome looks eternal. From up here, you can almost forget that half of it smells like fish sauce and regret. You sit beneath an olive tree, alone for once. The breeze is warm. Your breath slows. There is something sacred in the stillness. A woman nearby prays softly at a tiny shrine carved into the hillside. You don't know which god it belongs to. At this point, you figure they're all watching with mild amusement. You offer a silent thought. Not quite a prayer. More like a muttered, "Let me make it to dinner." Then something strange happens. You feel calm, not joyful. Not triumphant, just calm. Quirky historical detail. Romans often viewed fate, or fatum, as a kind of thread measured, cut, and assigned by the fates long before you were born. Control was an illusion. But dignity? That, you could cling to. You head back into the city. The fire's aftermath is still visible. Scorched wood. Blackened bricks. Neighbors sweeping debris from steps like it's just another chore between laundry and market. You lend a hand. A woman thanks you with half a loaf of honey bread. It's sweet and soft, a small miracle wrapped in linen. You tear off a piece and share the rest with a boy chasing a dog that may or may not be his. You pass a temple where musicians play a slow, haunting tune on a flute and drum. The sound curls into your ears and lingers behind your eyes. You stop. Listen, the tempo is simple. The rhythm predictable, but somehow it breaks something in you. A weight you didn't realize you were carrying shifts. Then it lifts, just slightly. You don't cry, but you want to. Instead, you keep walking, back to the forum, now half shaded. Officials post notices about emergency repairs. New taxes, and missing persons. One board reads, "Volunteers needed, fire patrol." You consider it. Helping feels good, or maybe just necessary. You find Marcellus near the latrine, selling his last pair of dice to a boy with one eyebrow and suspicious confidence. He sees you and smiles, you nod, he shrugs. Still have the chicken. The chicken clucks softly, you both walk home. Or rather, what's left of home, your room is soot-stained. The roof has a hole. But the floor is intact, and the air smells more like ash than danger now. You pick up the clay cup that somehow didn't break. Small blessings. Marcellus sets the chicken in a crate and flops onto the floor. I'm not moving until dinner, he announces. You smile. We might not have dinner. He shrugs. Then I'm not moving until disappointment. You lie down beside him, staring up at the ceiling beams. They creak. But they hold. Outside, the sun edges lower, casting gold on the rubble. You survived again, and somehow, that feels like a small rebellion. You wake before the sun. Not to shouting. Not to fire. Not to a stray chicken in your bed, although that would honestly make sense. You wake to quiet. Honest, golden quiet, the kind that only happens in the sliver of time before Rome remembers it has something to prove. You sit up slowly. The room smells like charcoal and damp linen. A hole in the wall lets in just enough light to turn Marcellus into a softly snoring hill of blanket. The chicken, somehow still alive, clucks once from its crate as if it's counting down the hours until mischief. Your limbs are sore, but they respond. Your tunic is wrinkled, but wearable. Your pouch, miraculously, holds a coin. You stand. Stretch. Crack your neck. It's a new day, but something feels different. Now, you're not just surviving Rome. You're adapting. You know how to blend into a crowd, how to spot a fair fig from a rotten one, how to nod at a guard without looking suspicious. You know which bathhouse doesn't scald you and which food stall offers slightly less rancid garum. You even know a little Latin now, enough to say I meant to do that when you trip in public. You step outside, the street is just beginning to stir. Vendors roll open their stalls. A boy sweeps dust into dustier corners. A dog stretches and yawns like it owns the place. It probably does. You walk without thinking now, legs carrying you toward the fountain. Toward the baker, toward the world. On your way, a neighbor nods at you. She doesn't smile, but she sees you. In Rome, being seen, not watched, not judged, just seen, is a kind of victory. You buy bread. It's warm. You tear off a corner and eat it while sitting on a broken column in the forum. Nearby, someone is preaching philosophy to a crowd of 3. A child splashes in the fountain. A woman sings quietly as she arranges olives. Everything is ordinary. Which, in Rome, is nothing short of miraculous. You think back. Just days ago, this would have overwhelmed you. The smells. The noise. The sheer, chaotic weight of it all. Now. It's familiar. You find comfort in the chaos. Historians still argue whether life in ancient Rome was bearable for the average citizen. Some say it was brutal and short. Others point to the resilience of its people, the ingenuity of its systems, the unexpected joy in its everyday rhythms. You don't need a scroll to tell you the truth. You've lived it. One scraped elbow, one stolen coin, one warm bowl of pulse at a time. You walk back home slowly, taking the long way through the back alleys of the Subura. A pickpocket bumps into you. You keep walking. Your coin is tucked into your sandal now. Let him try. A man is sweeping ash from a doorway. He hums a tune you heard at the bathhouse. You nod. He nods back. You climb the stairs to your floor. The 6th step still creaks. Inside, Marcellus is awake, carving a new die with yesterday's ashes still on his hands. The chicken is gone. You don't ask. You sit by the window. You don't speak. You don't need to, because today, of all days, you've made peace with the impossible truth. You wouldn't last a day in the Roman Empire, not as you were, but now, you just might. Wind down, and now, the city fades, the sun dips behind the rooftops, casting Rome in warm shadow and turning even its broken bricks into something beautiful. The sounds that once roared now murmur, soft footsteps, distant laughter, the occasional clink of pottery settling into place. You sit by your window, watching the sky turn dusky pink. For once, you're not rushing anywhere. There's no bucket to carry. No scroll to fake. No fire to outrun. Just you, the evening air, and a sense of stillness so rare, you almost forget to breathe. Your body is tired. But not the desperate kind of tired that begs for escape. This is the good kind. The kind that comes from doing more than you thought you could. From stumbling through a world that didn't wait for you, but eventually noticed you were there. Rome was not gentle. It was not fair. It offered no guide, no mercy, no pause, and yet, you found rhythm, you found moments of warmth in the middle of the roar. Found bread when there was no promise of it. Found people who remembered your name, or at least your face, and so, as the lamps flicker to life one by one across the city, and the last carts rattle home, you lie back, let the sounds blur. Let the smells soften, let the city carry on without you, just for now, because you made it, through a day in Rome, and tomorrow can wait. Sleep well, traveler, sleep soft.